Hello, people on Twitch. Welcome in. Why don't we dive right into it, Charles? That sounds good by you.
Yeah, can I go through some of the stuff in the Discord chat?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we had some
No,
D&D
I'm asking
questions.
permission for stuff. Someone did mention the mysterious duffel bag. It is full of Dungeons and Dragons things.
Ah,
It's just so fitting my character more of Charles. It's just that's the bag I use to bring all my D&D stuff uh, to the game house.
we were playing I Spy while you were gone because you have a very I
Mm.
Spyable vibe shelf behind you.
I just moved into this house, so I
Yeah,
specifically this was like the gamer shelf I made a point to fill out.
love it. I like
Um,
how your cat has a designated little spot that can show up on a stream
yes,
potentially. Very cozy
it's
and
it's
cute.
actually not only is there a cat, it's a double decker, and then I also have another bed right here so they can look out the window together.
You have two kitties.
Um,
Yeah.
I have two cats. I was debating on bringing them, but they're so annoying. They're gonna yell at me, and my bigger cat Lando specifically likes to punch me when he needs my attention, and
Aw.
I am well within punching range from this bed, so he would just be bapping the back of my head the whole time.
That's good
Yeah.
content though. Every time Doctor just walks in front of Leo's screen, I'm like I just glaze over. I'm like, cat, I have to pay attention to
Yeah,
this. All
I
right.
did. One of the last things I did at Game Informer. This is like, oh, I'll keep it a secret, but like I'm gonna publish it somewhere else. I did a bunch of Baldur's Gate 3 interviews,
Oh,
and I talked to the. I'm probably gonna publish it somewhere else, so it's not like dead, but it's just not gonna be a magazine feature. It's just
yeah.
I talked to the director of Baldur's Gate 3, and as I was talking to him, my cat like came on the screen, and sure, he's a perfectly nice guy. He gave me totally fine vibes. He was the least interested in my cat anyone has ever been in a
What? He
video
was
call.
like, get that
I
cat
was
off
like,
the screen.
I was like, oh, and this is Lando. He's like, oh, cool. I was like, he might be bothering me. He's like, okay, that's fine.
You were
Like, just didn't. He was like, we don't need to have this conversation. I
you
was
were
like,
trying
oh,
to have a
sorry. I just
human
assumed.
connection moment.
I thought you loved cats, but I don't know. It's fine. I don't know why I thought that.
Yeah, something about anybody who works like D&D adjacent has to be an animal lover for some reason in my brain because of just how much animal
Yeah,
vibes those games have.
definitely.
All right, let's get all this is really good talk that I want on the episode. So let me do the intro so that Ben can
Okay.
edit it in. Hello and welcome to Bonus Pod, the companion podcast of the MinMax Show. My name is Haley McLean. I'm the community manager, and today I'm joined by Charles Hart. Hi, Charles.
It's your boy. Hello.
It's my boy Charles Hart. Thanks for joining me. Up front, Charles is going to be on the episode of the MinMax show this week too. I stole him early so we can talk about a Phoenix Wright game that we both want to chat about. So I stole him first, but he'll be on a little bit later in the week because obviously the news. Unfortunately, Game Informer has blundered the bag with their talented ass staff and closed the thing and is deleting everything because that's how businesses should operate. Stupid. Sorry, I'm very mad, but very sorry about that, Charles. And we're thinking about you and all the best. And I'll have you on Bonus Pod every week if you let me, man. You're a good time.
Yeah, I do want to say the HR did open the meeting with, "Hey guys, I'm gonna cut right to the chase. We did blunder the bag. So sorry.
Oh, y'all, we
Um,
blundered the bag. I mean,
it is a thing of. I remember watching. I don't know if it was Bonus Pod. You did some podcast with Blake after he got laid off. I don't know if it was Bonus Pod or the main show.
he was on the main show.
Um,
Yeah.
okay. I remember him saying it felt like going to your own funeral. And I was like, that's a great description. Man, Blake should be a writer. What a great description for it. Because it's a thing of like, wow, it's really sad that I got laid off and I don't have like the coolest job in the world anymore. But also, so many people are being so nice to me. I really like that.
I remember him mentioning that. It's
so-
like, this sucks, but I feel great today just because of my friends being nice sort of energy, which is, I bet, a very annoying juxtaposition situation to be in.
Yeah, there was Erika Ishii. They're an actor. They're on like Dropout stuff, but they're in like Destiny 2, and they're going to be one of the voices of the protagonist in the new Dragon Age game. I'm a fan of theirs. They replied to the post about Game Informer shutting down, and like they were sad about it, and I started a quote tweet. I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea you were a fan. You should come on the GI show. Oh no, you can't actually do that. Just kidding. So I deleted that tweet.
Do you know what was really?
Yeah, no, I don't know.
Oh, that's too bad. What's weird is I was out for coffee with like a law student at the time. All this was happening, so I didn't realize that happened because it was so sudden on Friday, right? And again, you'll be talking to this about Ben more in depth, but just like how I learned about it, I was walking back from the coffee shop and I was listening to the Game Informer show, and you were talking about a ranger. And I had the genuine thought, like, oh man, Charles is like the funniest dude over there right now. Like Charles is so great on Game. Look at him; he's got so much banter. You were talking about Lando and Kit, I think, and telling a funny anecdote or something. And I was like, that's great. And then, like, as I started scrolling Twitter, I was just like, what the hell? And that's how I learned while listening to you give really good game criticism. Like, it was like a double-edged stab to me of like, how the hell is this happening to such cool and talented people?
Yeah. Yeah. I have no further comment.
No notes, just compliment. But
yes, thank you.
Of course. But you were very kind and said, let's still chat about games, and excited to. You are a Phoenix Wright fiend. You've been on Bonus Pod before playing other Phoenix Wright games. I'm also a Phoenix Wright fiend, but I am 1,000,000% a Phoenix Wright fiend compared to you. I bow to your Phoenix Wright prowess. So how much of this upcoming game that's coming out September 6th, I believe, they've been working on these remasters. Capcom's really pushing Phoenix right now, isn't it? So Ace Attorney Investigations Collection is, I think, September 6th, and there was 2 DS games, right? Originally?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was one of them did get released in the US. The other one was Japan only because the first one sold so badly here.
Oh, okay.
But they're remasters of Ace Attorney Investigations, which are games that center around Miles Edgeworth, who's the prosecutor from the original trilogy, and then like the other Phoenix Wright games he's just around in. And yeah, it's really interesting because it's not in a courtroom. And this was something I kind of wanted to ask you about because I was like, have I just been stupid this whole time? So criminal court systems. The way this game like makes it out to be is a crime happens and then the prosecutor comes in and the prosecutor is like in charge of the entire investigation, meaning like all the police and stuff report to the prosecutor. Is that like how it actually works if like a crime happens? I know you don't work with crimes.
Hashtag crimes. I don't know, because what's interesting about Phoenix Wright. Oh, did I lose you? I think Charles.
Sorry, I dropped off and I came back.
No worries. We got you back. You're back. I can hear you. The way Phoenix Wright smashes together like the U.S. court system, and Japanese court system in like a weird. It's like not actually like it follows the strict rules of either or. It kind of like steals from both. So I think like I don't actually know how the operation of prosecution would work personally, but I would imagine like even if there was criminal investigations going on by like the cops or something, whatever, they would just ultimately report that information to the prosecutor because they need it for their investigation in general anyways. Like they're going to need to know that whether or not they're in control of what the cops look into. I don't think that's the case. All this to say that I don't know. That seems crazy. Maybe.
Okay, yeah. I mean, no, I feel better that you're like, that's weird, because I was playing the game and I was like, he's operating with like a weird amount of authority here that I didn't realize was a thing. But yes. So yeah, and so you play as Miles Edgeworth, and it's different than the Ace Attorney games in that you are not in the court. You are at crime scenes very recently after the crime has happened. And you are basically leading the investigation that leads to the arrest of someone who will then be tried in the courts. But it's like usually an actual open and shut case at this point because you go through collecting all the evidence and like figuring stuff out.
So, so it's. I mean,
And
the original Phoenix Wright games were kind of like that, but more like happenstance, right? Like I feel like Phoenix Wright would always just by mistake be at the crime scene, and that's why he knew so
yeah,
much when the crime was happening.
I mean,
Is that kind of the vibe here too?
it kind of is, but it varies. So like the first case in the first game, Miles gets home from a long trip, and then he finds out someone's been murdered in his office. So then he has to like lead up the investigation to like figure out how to deal with that. And then the next case is a flashback to when he's on the plane home from somewhere, and then someone gets murdered on the plane, and then he's the prime suspect, so he has to prove himself innocent. Um, so it is in most cases just happenstance. But in the second game, which I also got to play some of, the first one is like they invite him to come investigate a scene because a crime occurred. It's not just that he happens to be there, which is the case in most of the ones in the first game.
Gotcha. And side note,
Yeah,
your Discord cam is being really funny. It's doing like slow mo, and then a second ago it like sped up like you were telling
yeah.
all the story in 1 second. Maybe if you could you turn your camera off and then on again. I think this happened with Leo's camera the other day, and that worked. Try that.
Do you think like literally just here we'll do this? Okay, we'll try it. We'll try that reset.
Perfect.
I have been having
You're good.
like internet issues in general. Anyways, yes. So it is different in that way, but I think the thing I always had that kept me away from these games is I was like, okay, so it's not courts. So what is the game? Like what is that's the whole game. That's the whole thing I like about the Phoenix Wright games. What's different?
Yeah.
It is functionally extremely similar because instead of it being like a first person view where you're doing your little I Spy in like a room to pick out the evidence and then talking to people and then going to court and like cross-examining people.
Yeah.
Now it is you physically walk miles around a crime scene to like click on things and examine them. And then there'll be points in the story where you talk to people and then you give rebuttals, which are basically just cross-examinations. And it's like the same mechanic, basically.
Okay.
So it's very similar. Miles also has new mechanics where he has a logic mechanic where you can just like pick up information from the scene of like, this bookshelf is knocked over and Bob mentioned his leg was hurting. And then you go, Bob's leg hurt because he knocked over all the books. And then maybe that's like going from one thing to another thing. So that's like cool. And then the second game introduces mind chess, which is a crazy name for a mini game.
Ooh.
Where you basically reverse psychology people into telling you things, and you just have to say the right things at the right time, and it's cool. It's wild.
How much of it have you been able to
they
play?
added all those mini games. What was that?
How much of it have you played so far? Like, did you get to play a decent chunk of it?
I'm only allowed to talk about, I believe, the first 3 cases from the first game and the first 2 cases from the second game.
Gotcha.
But I have played all of the first game. And then I'm on the 3rd case of the second game.
Nice.
It's a weird thing with these games where they like you get an embargo and I'm not supposed to talk about the game past that embargo, and so I won't be doing that. But it's also a game that already came out, so it's not like I could like I'm not spoiling for the convenience of a listener or reader that like doesn't want to know the plot beats, but it's also not like I would be the first person to reveal these details because it's all like I can look up the guide if I get stuck because people already know how to solve all these mysteries and stuff.
Yeah. That's a good point.
But yes, I was gonna say they have all these mini games, which is nice because it breaks up the kind of not monotonous, but like the gameplay loop of investigating is definitely less fun than the gameplay loop of cross-examining to me.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that Miles has like a bunch of different ways to do that examining investigation stuff makes it a lot more engaging because you're not just doing one thing the whole time. You're like cycling between a few different things.
I've heard this one is way more point and click adventure vibes than the other ones because it's like a third person like sprite you move around instead of just like a visual novel style of thing. So I've been told like I've only played probably 2 Phoenix Wright games all the way through, but it's been suggested to me that I would like these ones the best because I like point and click games so much. Would that track, do you think?
Um, I think you should try it and see if that's true, but I don't. It doesn't feel that much functionally different because again, like we're talking about the way you interact with the game, but also 80% of this is just reading what people are saying, and that is
Yeah.
kind of mostly the same. And the cross examining is essentially the same. You're just giving a rebuttal to someone in a non courtroom setting. So the
Hmm.
only difference is that like 10-15% or whatever when you are walking around the space. Um, and it is like, I guess, more point and clicky. But if I was thinking of point and click, I would think of the first game more than this one. But maybe I
Yeah.
don't have a good solid definition for that genre. Um,
Yeah,
but
that's pretty
yeah.
finicky, right? It's like point and click is you point and click something, but in my brain, it's like it also needs to have and I move around, which like the first games don't have. You're really just looking at a picture and then
Sure.
you click stuff on the picture. When I was looking at gameplay for this, you're at like, and it's only 10-15% that it's like that. So it sounds like it's mainly sticking to its roots or whatever, and just has like a little bit of spunk to it with the moving around bit, but. I saw it was like new revitalized sprites, and they were showing like comparison pics of like the pixelated one and the new looking one.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's interesting that because you can walk around, but it's still linear to the point that like you can never. You're not traversing between locations. It's the story takes you to a place and then it lets you loose in that one room. So in
Mm.
that sense, it feels a lot like Ace Attorney. It's almost even more linear than a mainline Ace Attorney game because in that instance, you're choosing to go to all the different locations, and this one, you're not really even choosing what room to go to. Um, Anyways, you said something else just now, and it reminded me of something, and I cannot remember what you said.
Ooh, something about sprites, the visual overhaul, maybe.
Yes,
Oh, I guess.
exactly that.
Yay.
Um, I don't know how I feel about the sprites. Um,
Oh.
I like the animation and I like how they look in a vacuum, but the backgrounds are so like painterly, like it's just a completely different art style that it feels kind of like a weird like flash game almost where you have
Ah.
these like pre-made character assets walking around a background. I feel like it blends better in the second game as I'm looking at the second. I also will preface I like the second game way more than the first game so far. I
Okay.
think that's a pretty general consensus from anyone that's played both of them, but the first one was like all right but fine, and the second one is like elevating my Ace Attorney brain.
You're playing, what was
Miles
it?
Edgeworth has never been so
Mind
complex.
chess.
Mind chess, exactly. Um, but yeah, the animation is good. Like the character animations look good, and the sprites themselves look good. It's just like the way they fit in the world that looks kind of weird to me.
Okay.
But I don't think I've seen anyone else like complain about that. I think that's a personal taste of mine.
That's fair. And what about Miles being, are these the only two games where Miles is the protagonist, or the like sort of DS spin-off ones? I feel like
Yes.
it's
Um,
uncommon for like I guess you could call him the antagonist, right? It's not like he's evil, but he's the antagonist in the original games. I feel like it's not very common to do like a spin-off and then you're the antagonist now, and it's not even like he's going up against Phoenix. He's just like, I have work to do over here. He's just living his life and doing other stuff. That's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's more of a Sonic, or it's more of a Shadow the Hedgehog vibe than a like Eggman
Interesting.
game.
Okay.
Um, where it's like you're not working together, but Edgeworth especially has kind of a uh character arc in that original trilogy where you guys both become aware that it's like, oh, we're not fighting, we're two sides of the same coin, and I can never really prove my client innocent unless someone like him is pushing for the truth every step of the way.
Yeah.
But then in this game, like Phoenix Wright is not in these games at all. Um, but you do meet other like prosecutors and defense attorneys, um, which are like fun ways to build out the world. You don't really meet a number of prosecutors as Phoenix Wright just through all the different games, but
Mm.
there's not a lot of other defense attorneys you encounter because you're just like the main one. So I enjoyed that and seeing those characters that are like the good guys, but from Miles Edgeworth's perspective.
Yeah, that's cool. It's fun, and people really. I've seen so many like ships of Miles and Phoenix. It very much has like a meme energy to it. This series, and
Uh-huh.
that it's fun that they leaned into it. They're like, sure, you guys love Miles so much. Here, I don't know. He gets 2 games.
I also have like I'm gonna preface this by saying I'm not a queer person, so I don't need to speak for any of these people in this community. But in this game, seeing people ship Phoenix and Miles together, it never really clicked for me. But Miles feels like he's written very like he's a gay man in this game. Like going into it with that just his attitude and his response to like people of different genders, it's like, okay, no, I can totally, that headcanon makes perfect sense to me right now.
There's sexual tension between Phoenix, and even in the original games, there's tension there. Like people like to say, "Oh no, there's not. They're just a prosecutor and defender. They're gonna butt heads." No, I'm trying to think of an anecdote, but like there's certain. I remember being like, "Oh, they love each other," because there'll just be little moments where he's like, "Shut up," and like do like a little like glance over his shoulder before he leaves or something. I'm like, "You love him. You're in love with him."
They also are like childhood friends, so they've got like the
Yeah.
childhood arc from there. Yeah, no, it's great.
And they were roommates. It's giving, and they were roommates. That's all I'll say.
They probably were roommates
They probably were.
at some point. I mean, in their history, not. Yeah, no, yeah, you get it.
Yeah. No. Cool. I'm curious about it. I mean, are they quite long? These seem like DS games. They probably were on the shorter side compared to the main game. Because as much as I love the main games, they just end up being so long. And then I also hate the way I play them because I'm going, no guides, Haley. You got to go off your intuition. You literally do this as a job. Like, you're supposed to have these skills. And then as soon as it comes time to, like, picking which evidence I put up against which item or whatever, I get too scared that I'm going to mess it up. And I always look at the guide. Is that how you play it, too? I can't not do that.
I know. I'm all guide all the way.
Okay.
This is like one of the games I'm most shameless about because purely because like sometimes the logic is not like
Yes.
intuitive.
Yeah.
Like you might be thinking the like completed puzzle piece and you're like, I know this makes sense with this statement because I can put the pieces together in my head of how it's wrong, but it's looking for some other thing, or sometimes you really have no idea. It's also a game where losing means you have to replay parts of the game, which is not a like if it's a skill based like action game or something, I can kind of understand that because then you're kind of getting to practice again, or it's still fun in the time you're making it back up to the place where you lost. And this one, it's like you're just going to be fast forwarding through the dialogue anyways, so it's not really like a fitting punishment. So every time I cheat in the game, I'm like, yeah, I don't feel bad at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's always been the core thing that maybe has made it so I haven't played all of these games is yes, sometimes it's just completely illogical, like the reasoning behind. I remember the playing card case that's like from one of the first games. I remember one. I wish I could remember the exact thing, but it was something like he couldn't have had that card because he had socks on and it was in his sock. It was like something so totally like random. It was like why you noticed he had socks on? Good job, detective. And I was like, how the hell am I supposed to infer socks hiding card something? It wasn't that exactly, but it was that kind of energy. And it was only until I read the guide that it was like you were supposed to know he had socks on. I was like, that's baloney. And I just like clicked it. But I would have had to, again, yeah, like spend 40 minutes fast forwarding through scenes. That's the core of like it'd be fun if you messed up a case, it just was like you frigged up and it changed the arc of the story. Like that'd be cool, but then they'd have to put so much more effort into these and have it be like a branching tree of how many do you get right, how many do you get wrong, does that affect the ending? That would be cool if they had like you could be the best attorney in the land and win every case or lose every one and you have a totally different ending. I would love to see them do a game like that.
I would love them to really try to do like a branching path, but it would be really hard, especially the way these games like arc over time. I was gonna say, you said they're DS games, so they might not be as long. The original games were also all DS games, and this game is as long as any of the other
really?
games.
Were the original ones DS? I guess that makes sense. That like plays so naturally with the touchpad thing and stuff like that.
I think the first game was maybe also Game Boy Advance, but I might be making that up. But they are all on DS. Like they're all available there if they're not somewhere else also.
Gotcha.
But yes, okay. First 3 games were GBA games. Yeah, that tracks. Oh no, the first one was like 2004 or something like that. So that was before the DS, anyways. Yes, no, they're long, and I like them. I like the second game is just really good, and it's almost to the point where I'm like, just don't play the first game. But
Interesting.
I don't know. It's impossible with these games because I like them so much and they're so long. Like, I know if I didn't already know that I like these games, I would never touch them. It's like so much of an ask. Like, you really have to just be able to be immersed in it.
Yeah.
But I really like the way the cases I played in the second game. It's a lot more the you are it's such a moving target, the investigation. You're not like, you can't even really predict where the case is going to end because you're trying to put together the dots to so many different places that you don't even know where like the road is going. Also, I guess kind of timely, it is about a presidential assassination attempt,
Oh
which was
God.
really weird to play like right when that happened.
Weird.
Um anyways the other thing I was going to say is the second game was only localized more recently because it was never released in the West, which is kind of fun. They used the word sus, and I was like, I don't know if they would have used that word back in
Wow.
2010 or whenever it came out.
The localization
Which I
team
enjoyed.
going hard, doing research.
They're great. They're very good.
Sus. I feel like that word was made for that series. Like, objection, that's sus. They just
I do. Yeah, I want a Gen Z Ace Attorney game where their like
yeah.
objection text is just sus.
I'm sure someone's made that as a meme already.
They have to.
It
Yeah.
has to exist, and it's already an emote in our Discord or something, probably.
It would be.
Nice. So it sounds like you recommend it, and maybe even just get the collection and play the second one if you're on the fence about enjoying. It's not like, do you have to play them linearly? Is there a story that you would mess up by playing the second one first to see if you'd like it better?
I mean, it is like a direct, like the second one takes place 2 weeks after the first one, and it has a lot of the same characters. So it's not like
Okay.
it's like but it's not the characters are all like introduced in the first game. You're gonna have a better sense of what's going on with them, but the arc of the second game is mostly unrelated to that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think that's a very specific type of person to buy this game and then jump to the second one. Like, if you're already in Ace Attorney and you like it enough, you're probably going to like made it through a bunch of these long games, and you're like, what's one more game when I played 9 of them or whatever.
Yeah.
But I will eventually, like, if I once I finish this second game, I will have played every Ace Attorney game, which I'm very excited about because I'll feel like a real fan.
Oh,
This is the
exciting.
last one.
And it was just the last one because it was never localized. And that's why it's always been off your list.
Both that and I just haven't, like, I played through the Apollo Justice games finally, like when that collection came out.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just so long. Oh, frick.
Oh, no, we got you.
Okay, I'm back. Okay, cool.
But your camera's doing the slow-mo thing, which is, it does look cool, I will say. There you go. Perfect.
Is it back now?
Yep.
Okay. I should next time I got to go like ooh, 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 so when it speeds up it's really cool. Well.
Neat.
Yes.
So it's recommended, and you're about to become the super mega awesome Phoenix Wright fan who's played every game. Congratulations to you, Charles.
That's what they call me. That's the PlayStation achievement.
It's fun when you've played everything. I am a very big nerd for. Don't come at me. I've played everyone. Like, it's like a weird relevancy you get, and especially if it's something you're passionate about. I always hate when there's just like one thing I haven't finished that I go back and.
Do you have the series where you're like, oh, I've played everyone, I'm the hardcore fan?
My brain is bothered by how I haven't finished all the Remedyverse games yet. So I've played, the only ones left are Quantum Break and Max Payne 2. I've played all the other games.
Okay.
And I've been told, I played Max Payne 1 for Something Rotten with Blake and Jacob. And that was super fun to play, even though it was such a throwback, and it still plays great, even though that game's quite old now. So I do still want to play Max Payne 2, and I really want to play Quantum Break, just because I've been told, like, Haley, what the hell are you doing? Play Quantum Break if you like this stuff. It's like just that, but multimedia. Then I'd have to watch the show. So as much as people are like, Haley's the Remedy girl, I'm like, it's a lie. I haven't played 2 of the 8 like I need to play everything before I'm allowed to consider myself like a what do you want to call it? Like a not knowledgeable person in that specific thing, I guess.
Yeah. No, I always feel weird like doing an interview with people. This is a thing Kyle's always like, Charles, it's fine. You can just chill. But I'm always like, yeah, how can I interview the guys that made Visions of Mana if I haven't played all the other Mana games? Because I know that there's someone out there that has played all of them and really wants to interview them. So I
Yeah.
don't want to come in here asking like stupid questions.
No, yeah, that's so
Like I always
true.
want to have the full brain, but it's impossible. So that's that's why I feel better.
When I went to E3 one year in 2017, like you just get assigned whatever interviews, right? Like my bosses got to do all the fun ones and go to the Mario and the whatever. It was Mario Odyssey that year. And I just got assigned kind of whatever, and I had that feeling. I felt like such a poser. I remember going in and I was interviewing the Path of Exile guys, and I did not know a thing about their game, and I felt so bad because they're so
Yeah.
sweet, and they're just like they just want to show me it, right? And they're like the first question they asked me obviously is like, how much of Path of Exile have you played? And I'm like 0 hour. I'm not gonna lie and be like 10 out, and then they'll be like, what class do you play? And I'll be like, like you know what I mean? I will never lie. So I'm like 0 hours. I'm really sorry, but I'm very excited to play your game, and I respect your work. It just makes it seem like I'm just there to check a box and not because I think they're cool, and it always kind of makes me feel guilty.
Yeah.
In a way when I had to do that.
Yeah, I did at Summer Game Fest. There's a show called The Dragon Prince on Netflix, which I like.
Oh, I've heard of that. Yeah.
And it's the lead writer was like one of the lead writers on Avatar: Last Airbender. Is like the big thing. I think it's a great show. They went on like a hiatus. Like they made I think 3 seasons, and then there was some like question of whether the show was going to come back or something. So I watched the first 3 seasons, and then I like didn't really realize it had come back. And then I went, and they have a mobile game. I think it's out now on like Netflix.
Oh.
And I did a Summer Game Fest like interview thing with them. And they were like, "Oh, have you seen the show?" And it was me and someone else that hadn't seen the show, and I was like, "Well, actually, yes, I have seen the show. So if you want to explain any of this to me, I'll know exactly what you're talking about." But then it was like, "Oh, yeah, all this stuff happens after season 3. So if you've seen anything after season 3, you'll be caught up." And I was like, "Dang it! So close."
You could have had your. I know exactly what you're talking about.
It all.
Moment, but you were a little bit off.
I was close enough that I bet they had talked to a lot of people that day that had no idea that it was even a show.
Yeah.
But
did you ever interview Capcom about Phoenix Wright stuff? Did that ever come up? So you could use that knowledge?
It didn't. I got an offer to like send in email questions, I think with this collection and the last collection. And I think the first time I did, and I got like such like nothing answers. I think I didn't even publish them.
Yeah.
It was so yeah. So I didn't send them this time also because I was really busy. And then also we died. So nothing came of that.
We died.
I would love to actually talk.
A great way to describe the situation. We all died.
Passed away.
Yeah.
I would love to talk to the localization team specifically.
Cool.
I think.
Yeah, that'd be neat. That'd be a really cool angle.
Because they're like it's written so well in a way that like I know there's a structure that you're taking from the original script of the game, but like it's not that easy to make what's funny in Japanese funny in English, especially in the way they do it.
Yeah.
I mean, so many things about the game that are iconic, like the pun names are like all the localization team.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's
respect to them.
That's a good point. It's like, how do you, what would they weigh more? Accuracy so that the player doesn't get confused and has those moments where they're like, wait, how does that logically make sense? Or comedy? Like, how do they balance the two? Like, it would be really funny if it said this, but then the person would get confused. That would be that's such a good angle because they're such undersung heroes. Like, localization teams probably work the hardest out of a lot of different like factors of development studios, because they have to know the entire game. They don't just have to know one facet of it and then send it off. They have to know every part of it and then communicate that in a completely different language and culture. That's crazy.
Yeah, there is stuff. I do think that's why, like, the Phoenix Wright world it's a weird fusion of Los Angeles and Japan,
Yeah.
and I think there are ways that they just have to explain how the courts work in this universe because it's like considered normal in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
I remember as a thing too. Ben did uh, interview with the localization guys on Final Fantasy 16 and Hi-Fi Rush, I think.
Oh, okay.
And one of the things they were talking about is like the body language, which I thought was really interesting. Of like
Oh.
having to be like, people in English don't nod that much, or like we don't need as many close-ups on clenched fists. Like that's just not a thing we do in America. I was like, that's so interesting. I didn't think it would be that different, but it's cool.
That's really interesting. Like, and then how those two court systems play out actively too. It's like such a niche, specific area of culture that you also have to have a lot of knowledge about. Not just like what are Americans like in general. It's like how do American courts procedurally operate, and what's weird and what's not weird, and what would be okay and what's not okay. You'd have to have so much background, crazy knowledge. Like even learning about it actively at law school, I was just like, I don't know what goes on in a courtroom. I know all the case law behind it, but I don't know, like, if I were to walk in and be chewing gum, what would the judge say? You know what I mean? Like, if I were to walk in with a water bottle or a Coke, could I walk in with a Coca-Cola and a judge say, "What do you do?" Like, I don't know. Like, what's the vibe? I don't know. I don't even know.
Do you go to American courts or are you strictly Canadian court? Like, how often are you in a courtroom?
Literally never. I do transactional law only.
Okay.
So I sit at home.
Okay.
I went in a
No,
court
because I was going to say you could make a
bar.
game.
Me, a transactional lawyer adventure game, it would be so boring.
Oh, that'd be great. No,
I'd be like, time to draft the recitals of this agreement, and then like a bunch of crazy like bubbles pop up as I'm typing. It would literally be like a typing game, and instead of letters coming from the top, it would be like legalese phrases, and you have to choose which ones. That would be the closest I could get to that being fun, because the rest of it is really just writing all day.
I was gonna say you should make a game. Well, I was gonna say in theory, if you had experience in Canadian courtrooms and American courtrooms, you could make a new spin-off that fuses those two different legal systems. Except you haven't done that, so it wouldn't be a thing.
What would be the Canadian lawyer's
I still think it's interesting.
Spunky name? Because it's all in the name. I always thought Miles Edgeworth was kind of blah. Phoenix Wright? Yeah, that's punchy as hell, right?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Miles Edgeworth kind of felt like they just gave the guy a name, and then later on they're like, oh wait, everyone loves him, but we can't change his name, so we'll just keep it Miles Edgeworth. You need something punchy.
No, definitely. Like Dick Gumshoe, great name, iconic name.
Oh, that's pretty spunky. Something last name Maple, that'd be good. Like I try to think of a name that almost sounds like a verb, you know?
Ooh, okay,
So
yeah.
they feel active and like spunky.
Oh, there is a judge that is actually a really interesting thing in the second game. There is a judge character, and she like walks around the crime scene weirdly. I don't know why she's participating, but her name is Judge Gavel.
Gavel,
like a gavel.
Oh,
Gavelle. Monty Maple, that's a good one.
Monty Maple's a great one. I like the alliteration angle.
What if it's like Moose Maple? I like getting Moose in there. Yeah.
Moose
now,
Maple.
Okay, Moose Maple might be a dude. Maple Moose is an animated character.
That
one
from
doesn't work.
Rocky and Bullwinkle or something. Yeah. Well, I like Monty Maple because it could be Montgomery Maple, right? And then like his friends call him Monty.
Ooh.
So
yeah.
That has a kind of a flow to it. Montgomery Maple. Oh, thanks for the raid, Indian Former. Thanks, Jill. Yeah, like I'm excited that they're focusing so much on bringing, these games to the forefront again. I don't know why they just love this IP. Even like I was on Lace looking at vinyls, and they have like the 25th anniversary Phoenix Wright Ultimate Collector's Bundle vinyl set, and it was like $100, and it looked really cool. Oh my god, Fred already made a sus Haley emote. Do you see that? Fred. Oh, that's hilarious.
Iconic.
It's iconic. And Orby, of course. What else are you playing these days, Charles? You still on Baldur's Gate, or have you moved on? I'm a little bit sad that I've moved on from Baldur's Gate.
I haven't played in a while. I started a Dirge run.
Me too.
But it's been a few months since I
It came out a year ago. Isn't that crazy? It's already been a whole year.
It is. Frax. Monty Maple. Okay, wait, am I back? But I'm doing really slow.
You're back, but you're slow. Yes.
Whoa. Okay, maybe it'll go really fast and it'll be funny.
It's like Frozen. Okay. So you're just stuck on one frame.
Oh well. What the heck was I talking about? Baldur's Gate 3. Yes. I was gonna say I have to come back after my Baldur's Gate 3 piece is published because I did a lot of like cool stuff that I want to talk about. But I do want to talk about briefly Dungeons and Dragons, if that's of any interest.
Yeah, that's of interest. No, down.
Have you played it all? We talked about you like maybe playing. I was just curious of what if you've done anything since then.
I'm weaning my friends in. Isn't weaning a weird word? I'm weaning my friends in. And we've played.
That can't be the intended usage of that word.
It's the cadence in which I said it. I took a too long a pause between weaning and in that it sounded weird. I'm weaning my friends in. We've played Not Enough Mana a few more times, and that's that board game that you and I talked about a while ago, which is like a drinking wizard game. It's really fun. I still highly recommend it. Mm-hmm. And I really make them role play. Like they're not allowed to. They want to play that game because it's fun, and I'm like, you have to have a wizard name. And we have to play bard music while we're playing, and I don't care. Like we'll do it, and they love it. Right? It's like playing pretend, like we're kids again. So my partner did get me a D&D like starters. I don't know what you call it. It has a phrase on it. I can't remember. It's like beginner's kit or something like that. Do you literally have it behind you?
Is it perhaps the essentials kit?
I think that's exactly it with the dragon on it and everything. I'm a biggie boy. It was called Not Enough Mana. It's really good board game. I highly recommend it. He got me that. So I really just need to take the initiative and force them all to sit down and do it with me.
Initiative?
I didn't even mean for that. But it's just like I need to be the one with the DM. I need to be the DM. I need to do a bunch of work to make it really spunky and fun, and then they'll do it with me. I just need to set aside maybe a weekend to get ready and get it all organized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also don't think you should look over the stuff and get ready for it, but I don't think you should put too much pressure on yourself. Like the nice thing about a module starting out is you at least have like material things to fall back on. If you're like, I don't know what happens, it usually kind of gives you like a guideline. Mm-hmm. I think playing for the first time is more important than prepping for a million years, because at the very least then you can be like, okay, this is what I need to prepare, because I'm not going to know at all what's going to happen there.
Yeah.
Like you can identify the areas that you need like support in.
So with that box that you also have, like what happened, like, mm-hmm. Could you walk me through me opening that box and then what I have to do? Like what's like, I just read it.
Is that definitely the same one?
I can go grab my one. I'm pretty sure
kit?
It's in the next room. Let me grab one sec.
Haley's gone. Now Charles is in the driver's seat, and we can shoot, I should have come up with like a fun cool thing to do. Everyone, fire. Everyone set stuff on fire, I guess.
It is in fact the exact same one. Essentials kit.
Oh, sick.
with the ice
The Dragon of
dragon.
Icespire Peak.
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah.
I haven't even opened it because that's how much of a pussy I'm being. You know what I mean? It's like as soon as I open it, then I have. I'm being a D&D puss. I just need to like open it and read all the like yeah. So I open it and I just read the book that's in there and then I just follow that to a T.
So what the nice thing about the Dragon of Icespire Peak as a module is it is like, here is the world, there is a dragon. At the end of this adventure, you guys are probably gonna have to fight this dragon.
That tracks.
Get there, and that's kind of like the arc that you will go on. So you know who your final big bad is. And then you also have like a hub village, and then there's a few little missions that you can go on that your like adventures will go on. The nice thing about this like hub village is it's got like characters and it's got names and it's got their roles. So what I did is I was like, oh, okay, Elmar Barthen, he runs the inn, I think, or the general store maybe. And then you can like make Elmar Barthen a character, or just like listen to his name, like what does he sound like to you? My whole thing is like, I think the inn is run by a guy named Toblin Stonehill. And on my first session, I was like, hello everyone, I'm Toblin Stonehill. And they were like, this guy sucks. He's got the worst voice ever. I want to kill him. I don't want to listen to anything he says. I was like, oh no, he was supposed to be like the nice guy from Get Along With. So then he became like a character in my game that was like, I don't know, the annoying nerd that no one wanted to hang out with. But a lot of it is like, if you've never played before, there was like that booklet does teach you how to play, and teaches you how to read some of the stuff in there. Also, if you ever like, there's literally nothing I like doing more than helping people play Dungeons and Dragons. So if you have any questions, I can help you. But it is the Essentials Kit is also a guide for you in addition to the players, which is nice.
Okay. And it comes with dice and everything.
I just started a new campaign. Yeah, it has dice.
Yeah. What's your campaign like? Yours are probably like have all these crazy like twists and turns and like, oh, I didn't realize they were actually his niece and they have a backstory and this happened. Like, I feel like you would go really deep in all the lore and stuff.
I would like to. It is a thing where like when you're building the world from scratch, it's a lot more of a commitment because you just have to like have like the most basic details in place. But the hardest part is at the very beginning where you're actually putting everything out there. And then once you've like established the variables of the world, then you can kind of like roll through it because you know if X then Y, if X and Y are both like defined variables.
Roll through it? Oh.
Roll hey! In my world, we wanted to make it, I did like a very magic heavy world last time, and now this was a more like grounded, they wanted to do like Game of Thronesy kind of world.
Cool.
And my one player page, I wanted everyone to have a secret from the other players was my main thing. I wanted everyone have like a
I like that.
deep secret. And Paige had, I guess if you're my players, don't watch this. They watched some of the other D&D stuff, which I was not expecting them to do. So don't pay attention to this. Paige's character, she was like, all right, I have 3 ideas. One is that I'm not actually a part of the royal family, and that's like a secret. The other one is that I had a secret baby as a teenager, and they took it away from me, and I had to spend years hidden away in a tower, and now I just want to find out what happened to my baby. And the third is I was abducted by a ghost, and I don't know what happened there. And I was like, it was such like a wide range of possibilities. Like, these are 3 very different characters, which is all very funny.
What did she go with?
She went with Secret Baby.
Secret Baby. I was kind of hoping it was Secret Baby. That was the most intriguing.
That's like a nice thing. Like at some point, it's like, this will be later. This will be like months and months from now. Secret Baby is like pinned to my imaginary in my, what is it called now?
Mind Palace.
Yeah, my Mind Palace.
Where you play Mind Chess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I've got Secret Baby pinned up to a board. But yeah, no, this most recent one, we just started playing for the first time, like this last weekend. But it just moved like an hour away, so now we're playing less often, which is sad. But it was a thing where I was like, okay, this is gonna happen, and then I had like a big main event. There was a character was going to get assassinated, and it was going to be like the start
Ooh.
of a big political arc. And for some reason, I just got caught up in the moment. And instead of just saying this thing happened, I was like, let's just roll for it. What's the worst that could happen? And then they managed to stop it. And now I'm like, okay, well, I had all this stuff that was going to happen because I planned this as like a set in stone action, but I wanted it to be fun and feel meaningful. And now I got to figure out something else. And that's the whole game. So
So the
if
guy
your plans
didn't
go
get
wrong, then you're doing
assassinated.
everything right.
And are you just
Yeah.
so in that instance, are you trying to now connect the plot line you wanted that started with an assassination with some other event since they stopped that? Or do you just give up on that whole arc that you spent so long thinking about?
Well, it was like, well, the character that was gonna be dead, it was gonna be the thing that motivated them to like leave the castle
Oh.
and go and do this quest. But they didn't die, and then I was also like, well, I got to reward their successful role, so I gave them like a hint as to like who was maybe behind it. So now I'm thinking, I
Oh.
guess the next few sessions are going to be a little more investigative, like hunting out corruption within the royal castle.
Hmm.
Um,
They're gonna
but
stick
I
to
don't
the
know. I have
castle, and
to.
you're like, leave, go outside.
Well, it's also a thing of they wanted it to be Game of Thronesy, so I wanted to have like the political intrigue, but there's not that much combat in Game of Thrones, like
Yeah.
in the general palace. So I was like, the sooner I can get you out of there into people that you can kill, where it's not gonna have long-lasting consequences, the better. But we haven't actually hit that point yet, so we'll see.
So when you say like they want a Game of Thrones experience, do you have a little like session with them and you're like, what do you expect from me next time to like get their vibe check and stuff?
Yeah, we call it the general term for that is session 0, which is how we started. And I made a little list of like the things we wanted from the camp. If you do this with your players, you should definitely you'll probably do a session 0 where you like establish the vibes, like what everyone wants and doesn't want,
Mm-hmm.
and then like maybe make characters for the first time, just because that's going to be a whole thing people will have to do.
Okay.
But yeah, we had a whole thing of, we were like, what do we want? We wanted the political intrigue. We wanted the backstabbing. We wanted it to be a little more grounded. One of the things I put on there was like cool, important swords. Because I really like in Game of Thrones, they have the Valyrian steel or they're like lightsabers. I'm like, I love that. I love a cool sword.
Yeah.
And then that's also the time where you'll be like, these are things that make me uncomfortable. We decided in this particular world we were fine with like darker themes because we were going for like a more Game of Thrones thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you might be like, hey, I don't want children to be in danger in my world. Or a common one that people often don't like think to write down is like, hey, I don't want my pets to be in danger. I don't want anyone's like dogs to die because that makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Who knows why? Yeah, no, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
And what's your take on drinking during D&D sessions? Do you think it's just because my friends are going to want to drink? I already know they're going to say, we'll have beers. Do you think it is too distracting? If people get too tipsy, then they get too silly and does it ruin it at all? Is there a risk to that? Or is it kind of just like obviously I trust my friends not to throw up during our D&D session, but I'm just thinking more like, that'd be funny if I just did and it like, sort of snowballing off the point of why we're even doing it, so to speak.
I think it's probably good for some things and bad for other things. The one thing I will say here is, of our group, I'm the only person that really drinks. And when I say really drinks, I'm not like really drinking. I just mean like the rest of them don't drink at all.
Yeah.
And I'll like drink sometimes during the games. But the main thing is like, if you get too drunk and then all of a sudden like you forget how your character works, like people are trying to explain stuff to you and you're like, I don't know what a proficiency bonus even is.
That's the
then
thing.
It's like, that's not going to be useful. But if people are getting like stressed about like role playing or like being in character, in that instance it's like useful to be like, I don't care if I'm doing a bad British accent because I'm not even really cognizant of that fact. So I don't know. I think it's I I think with most of this stuff, it's like let it happen until it is a thing where you're like, oh, I shouldn't do that. Like,
Yeah.
um,
We're all adults.
I think a more contentious issue is food wise. It's like what food
Oh.
can you eat during D&D, if any? Like
Are you
some
strict
people
about
are
that?
like, I love eating. I'm not strict, but I can see someone being like, well, don't eat Cheetos while playing D&D because you're gonna get my dice all gross, dude.
Oh, I thought you were gonna be like,
But it's a
because in the fields could never create wheat that creates that orange hue in this world. I thought you were gonna say something like that.
oh no, I do love that though, the magical realism. Also, there, if that was the case, they would immediately be like, "Oh, I'm a wizard. My father was the wizard Cheeto. He invented Cheetos,
Yeah.
so that's how those exist
You
in
could
this
just
world."
fix that in 2
Yeah.
seconds with
Yeah,
randomness. Yeah. Oh, phones at the table says Manic Tea. That's interesting.
yeah,
Are you like phones off during the sesh vibes?
yeah. I not. I don't really like put rules on that, but it is a thing of like I don't know because well, I have like two different players at my table that have ADHD. And so there's an extent to which I know that if they're doing other things like with their hands or even if they're looking somewhere else, I know that they are just like kind of splitting their attention, but they're still paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
If it does come to someone's turn and they're like actually not paying attention, there does get to a point where it's going to be like, all right, guys, we're just going to do a no phone session or we're going to do a, I don't know, bringing like more blanket rules to people. That is one thing of the DM that I like wish I didn't have to do it all, but just being like the social manager of the group of people of like
Yeah.
I'm deciding what people can and can't do. But also that's not like a role the DM necessarily has to have. Like just because you are leading the game doesn't mean you're like the boss of everyone. I think that's just how I kind of am in this circle of friends.
Yeah. You're the leader. You're the fearless leader. Listeners, Charles saluted. If you didn't get that.
Salute.
That's cool. I think I'm going to read this properly. Everything you need to create characters and play new adventures, it says on the box. For 2 to 6 players.
There's also a new book coming out.
Oh.
They're basically I this is the reason I brought this up and I forgot about it because I just get really excited when I'm talking about this dragon. They are redoing the player's handbook.
Oh, did we talk about this
like
very
the most
briefly
basic
last time,
rules.
maybe?
Probably.
I recalled this slightly, but maybe
it comes
was
out
still in the discussion phases or something.
It comes out September 17th. And it's basically they're like redoing it's basically like a remaster of all these classes and stuff, so it's the same basic rules and it's supposedly backwards compatible with all of the older stuff, the older content, but it's like a new way to make characters that's like a little bit more balanced, ideally anyways. And then there's the rules that are like slightly shifted or are clarified, which I'm very excited to do because I really, really like reading rules. And I'm excited to see exactly all the ways that it changes. They've like done a lot of this stuff, like playtests that are public and things that people can read.
Okay.
But I don't know, that it's also hard because the kit you got is going to have the older rules in it, so it's always a thing of like, I think it would be cool to learn the new thing, but I think for a new player it would be maybe confusing to have this like 2 different sets of rules and not really know like what comes from where. Yes, I'm excited for that. I wish I had gotten a book for working at Game Informer because they would have sent me one.
Oh.
But
so when that book comes, are you like you're gonna sit down with Post-it notes and just like work through that baby and mark like, oh, this is for the future? Like, is that how you go about a new set of rules, or do you kind of just refer to it during sessions?
I mean, I am such a fiend about it. I'm gonna read it cover to cover and just kind of absorb it all.
Yeah.
That's
what I thought.
So like I don't really I don't really take notes or anything. But I do think I'm going to try to implement. I don't know. It's a thing where like there's an extent to Dungeons and Dragons where I'm like, if you're playing a character, I would like you to put the effort into understanding the mechanics of that character
Mm-hmm.
to play. Like I can help you explain stuff, but there's a point at which it's out of my hands. There's other things I do as a dungeon master where I'm like, no one would ask this of me. I would never ask this of someone else. This is just a thing I feel like doing. And one of those is like, I'm going to read this entire new set of rules and then try to implement it into the game.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's fair. And with the, like, what if you're halfway through, you would just stick to the old rules to finish the session? You wouldn't ever change the rules mid-session. Is it that drastic of a change, this new September version? That would mess up stuff?
You said session. Do you mean like a campaign or like a single sitting?
I mean a campaign, because I don't know the words, because I'm a fake
No,
D&D nerd.
it's totally fine. It's all made up. No, I mean you could switch it halfway through, but it like part of it is that like the way you build a character is different. So it would be like everyone would have to agree to basically make their character a second time with these new rules, which again, depending on like the group of people they may or may not be interested in.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see that being confusing, but I'm imagining their idea of making this newer, updated edition is that it should be easier to make a character than it was before. Because I imagine they want to get rid of as much friction as possible. But this is all me being generous to them. I don't actually know if this book is any more intuitive than the other one.
Interesting. How often do they do that? Do they do like a 2.0 complete rules set rechange? Is it pretty frequent or not really?
Not at all.
Oh.
This is the first time they've done something like this, kind of like depending how who you ask about it. So the current edition of Dungeons and Dragons is the 5th edition,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a bunch of different editions of the game going back that are much more drastic reimaginings of the rules. This is the equivalent of a very popular edition was 3.5 edition because they made 3rd edition and then they put a bunch of new changes in that was essentially the 0.5 update, where it was like a newer version that was like cleaner than 3rd edition, but still like roughly the same kind of thing. Yeah, in the chat, some people play 2nd edition even. That's like Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. That was like but those, and again, those are vastly different games mechanics wise. I think structurally they're pretty similar,
Mm-hmm.
but like I wouldn't know what to do with the 3rd edition character sheet. This is an example where they are like updating rules, but it's all supposed to still be backwards compatible and like work with the older books.
Okay.
And they've said like, as long as the characters themselves are consistent, you could theoretically play a 2014 character. 2014 is when the original rules came out. A 2014 character in a campaign that uses 2024 rules, as long as like that character is just using the old level up stuff and you're not trying to mix things in that character progression specifically.
Okay.
But it is weird. It's weird and cool and new, and people in the community don't really have a set like language for it yet, which I think is interesting.
That's cool. It's crazy how there's so much to it. Like I just have this one little box, but yet it's like accumulation of probably hundreds of thousands of pages of stuff at this point.
Yeah, I don't mean to overwhelm you also. I get
No.
very excited about it, but I didn't want to be like I don't mean this to be like you better play Dungeons and Dragons by the next time I talk to you. I was more just like curious if you
honestly,
had, because I
need
wanted
the
to talk about these new
push.
books.
I appreciate the push. I appreciate now I need somebody I need to impress you later to say that I've done it, because that'll push me to actually do it. And since I'm assuming that you have this, you would recommend this the starter's kit as a good like first try. Like this is the one I should go with.
Yeah, that one's pretty flexible. I think there's some things like that's the only written adventure I ever did, because I went from that and then I basically just started writing my own stuff.
Okay.
Largely because there's stuff in that book. My issue with modules in general is if something goes wrong and I haven't made this world, I don't always know the logic of how to continue from that point. So there's like an instance I remember in that where there's like a dungeon you go to and it's like players can discover the secret artifact with a successful DC 15 history check. And it's like, okay, what happens if they fail? Because they're probably gonna fail. Like, it'll say if they do this successfully, they'll get the thing, but won't explain what happens if they don't get the thing. And I'm like, all right, well, if they never get it, how do they continue? Do they just leave? Do I just have them keep rolling and spending time?
Yeah.
And it's stuff like that where I'm at least comfortable enough in my own world to be like, I know what happens if these things go wrong, or at least enough pieces of what goes on.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with any of this stuff, if you know to expect that, then you can go from there and it'll be fine. Also, your friends are playing for the first time too, so it's not like
they're not gonna be
also,
crazy.
if something's dumb, you're like, this stupid box, man. It's got all this stuff wrong in it.
I can blame the box.
I'm such a great DM, but yeah.
That's fair. Just another D&D thought is I've been playing Fields of Mistria this whole last week because this is Sarah, our very own Sarah Pazorski is on the team for this game, and she kindly gave me a code to check it out even before its launch, which is today. It's early access launch, and they have a really cute thing in the game, which I think you'd like, which is every Friday everyone goes to the inn and they're just like hanging out. Like every single character in the town goes at like 8 p.m. on Friday and drinks at the inn, and every Friday they're doing a D&D campaign, and you can check in every Friday. And I'm almost at the end of year one, and it's still going. They switch up the characters who are in the campaign, so it's like several different ones, but it's really cute. Like,
oh my God.
One of them, they're just like straight up fighting a dragon, and I literally go up to the thing to check to see like how their campaign's going, to see what's going on with it. And you get to listen to the little, like, the speech bubbles of like, okay, so what do you cast? It's like, I guess I do this, and you can choose to listen to the whole thing. And I've been listening to the whole thing. It's such a very cute little thing that I was like, oh, Charles would love this, I think.
You're correct.
If there was like,
I would love this.
It's very fun. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about Sarah's game more on the main pod, but I've been loving it. It's so relaxing. It's just like throwing me right back to Stardew Valley vibes. Like, I'm 21 hours in and I play it every night. I go to bed at like 8 p.m. to play it. I was telling Sarah, it's like Juniper. I have a crush on Juniper. I'm flirting with her. She's like the goth witchy lady in town. She's very cool. And it's really well written. It's great. I'm very excited for other people to check it out. But yeah, I'm sure we'll chat about more on the main pod. Anything else in your mind, Charles, you feel like chatting about before we wrap it up? The floor is yours.
Anything else?
Isn't that the most broad question ever? And unfair of me to ask.
I don't think specifically. Someone in the Twitch chat mentioned Life is Strange Before the Storm had a D&D campaign, and I did. Yeah. I played that before I played D&D, and remember being like, "This
True Colors cool. Has it too, right? True Colors has a whole little. They don't call it D&D.
Oh,
but they have like a.
Well, they have a LARPing thing.
LARPing, that's what it was. But it was like similar vibes. Would you ever LARP? Are you pro LARP, con LARP?
I would. I have never been in a position where it's been. Like I've never been invited to LARP. I've never like passed a LARP on the street and been like, oh, they're looking for people to join. Like, it's never been a position I've been in.
How does one pass a LARP on the street? That's such an amazing thought. It's like a bunch of wizards sprinting downtown. You're like, oh, fun.
Oh, we need help finding this ancient crystal. My professor of game studies back when I was in school, he was like a big into LARPing, and that was the thing where like when I first started that class, I joined it because game studies, and I was like, video games, that's all I care about. And then there was also board games and analog games, and then I quickly realized like, oh, this isn't strictly a video games class. But also my professor was like not strictly a video games professor, like he played video games, and in that like intro day where sometimes you'll have a professor and they're like, here's a little PowerPoint all about me. My professor doesn't sound like that, but I wish he did. One of the things he showed was like, and this is me at the most recent LARP I did, and it was like Hamlet, but 18th century London or something like that. Like, it was, everyone had roles they were assigned to, and I like don't know enough about LARPing to know exactly how it worked, but he was like really into it, and I think initially I was like, nerd, like that's so lame, that's such a weird thing to do. And then I started playing D&D, and then quickly realized where role playing sits in my head, and now I'm like, oh, I would LARP, I would definitely LARP, and I'd probably have fun with it.
Am I wrong in thinking it's just like moving around D&D like with less steps? Like it's obviously supremely more simplified, but it's just like if you wanted to play D&D and also exercise a bit, it's just LARPing.
Yeah, well, and it also depends on like
There's like
because
World
D&D
War
is
II
one.
LARPs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
D&D is one tabletop RPG. There's a lot of different ones with like simpler and more complicated rules and like a whole bunch of different stuff. So LARPing is the same way. I think he recently posted he went on some, I can find his Twitter real quick. It was like
I love
a
that you're still keeping
wild
up with his LARP adventures post school.
Oh, he like he follows me on Twitter. Let's see. Oh, he retweeted my thing saying I don't have a job.
Oh, that's nice.
Cool. Let's see. No, I don't just need to see the photo. I want to see the post. It's like the pictures of it are like a Star Trek type thing.
Oh.
And everyone like dresses up and like you pay a lot of money for this specific kind of LARP. But you basically dress up and you go to like a spaceship set, and then everyone is like as if they're crew members on the spaceship. Like that's also LARPing. It's just like you physically putting yourself in the place and doing like a LARP retreat, basically.
That sounds they go to a place with a pre-made space set and just like play. Yeah. Why does that sound so?
I should have. I should have clarified that Hamlet LARP was in a castle. Like they were in a real life castle when they did that thing. So there's like
I picture like a field, and they're just like, the winter is coming. Like, I don't know, they're just not doing anything.
That also happens for sure.
Yeah. So being in the physical place makes me more intrigued. Like, I guess the only LARPing I've seen is like when people come to the field by the park where my parents live, and they're just kind of like wrestling essentially, and I'm like, oh, that looks fun. But to LARP in like the location where if there was cameras around, it would look like you're low-key in that era, like that would hit. That would be fun. Yes.
That's a thing of I had my two game studies professors were married to each other, which I found out like 2 years into having each of them because I had different last names. The other one, they really like role-playing games and tabletop games and stuff like that, but they don't like Dungeons and Dragons. So it's an interesting thing of them trying to explain to people like, this is a thing I like. You might be thinking of Dungeons and Dragons, which is similar, but not what I like to do at all because they're not into the fantasy stuff.
Okay.
But there's a game, I feel like you might like this, not knowing that much about you, and tell me if I'm completely off base. But there's a game called Monster Hearts where you play as monsters that are dating each other, basically.
I love it. Monster Hearts.
It's like a teenage monster romance tabletop RPG.
That sounds fun.
There's a bunch of games like that, and that's like the thing that she's really into. Is just the role playing outside of the fantasy genre, because that's never something that's spoken to them. But anyways, LARPing,
and a great word for a thing. I know it stands for live action role play, but just like, what are you up to this weekend? LARP. I have a LARP. I don't know, something about that. I'm like, hell yeah, brother, that sounds lit. I love that for them.
Yeah, LARP.
I'm gonna LARP.
Sounds like a Pokemon.
It does. It does sound like a Pokemon. Well, Charles, thank you so much for joining me on Bonus Pod this week.
Thanks for having me.
We talked about so much. And you're going to be, folks, this isn't the end of Charles this week. He's going to be on the main podcast feed going up on Thursday. So even more Charles coming up. In terms of what's going on for New Show Plus, we have potentially my sister coming back. We played Orby last week, which was how we play Halo 3, yeah. Which we just my sister and I also kind of, to this conversation, we grew up role playing. My sister and I role play our relationship. That's literally like, so if I call my sister, I don't just say hi, I go, hi, like is this who I think it is? And she'll always answer like, you have a lot of balls calling me. Like she'll like, we could never just like say hi Emma or hi Haley. It always has to be a bit. And she's always a guy named Jebediah. And I have to be like, Jeb, you get your ass back here. Like we always just have to be doing stuff like that. So that's why I think she'd like D&D, because she already has those natural skills.
This is also your Red Dead role playing.
Yes.
Like that's all. This is all the same. This is all the same thing.
I just want to play. I just want to play as an adult. Is like that's if I really boiled that all down to. It's just like I miss those feelings when you would just be like, I'm the king, and you're like on a playground gym with your friends. Like, I'm the queen. Like I just want to do that crud more and pretend I'm a child still. But for episode 2 of that, it would be Emma and I doing. We used to do Big Brother challenges in The Sims 4, where we would build like a really extravagant house and we put them all in. We'd even put like fake security cameras everywhere to like bring the illusion that we're spying on them. And then we would do challenges. We would turn autonomous stuff like really up. So we weren't telling them to eat or whatever. Like they just did and lived their lives and flirted with each other, got mad or hated each other. And we would do challenges where we would essentially like lock them in rooms until one of them died, and then that they were out of the house, and then we would keep going. So one of the challenges was we locked them in a room with a fireplace, and they took turns poking it until it's just RNG. Like one time you'll poke it and you'll catch on fire. So we did it until like one dude caught on fire. Another one was the finale was actually the pool deleting the ladder. And what it came down to was whoever slept, we let them have 24 hours before each challenge, and it was just like, oh, whoever sleeps last wins because it's energy based. So we were like watching with bated breath, like who's gonna sleep? And then the character Emma Lights like went and had a nap right before we were about to do the challenge, and she won because she had the most energy. We were like, yeah, like we got so into it. So
that's so unhinged.
I know. So we're down to do that again. Also coming up would be, actually, I don't know if Ben, let me look on the announcements page. I can't, unfortunately, open it on Discord at the moment because then it would ruin my really pretty layout. Let me see here if he's posted. He has not posted yet, so I won't spoil it because it might still getting planned. But that is, I know for sure that would be episode 2 of Orby. And then 3 other things incoming. Check out MinMax's socials or the Discord to see the other 3 options, because they'll also be great. A lot of good options coming up this week. But yeah, thanks so much again, Charles.
Of course. Thanks for having me, and thanks, MinMax, for having me. You're all I have left.
We will take you.
No pressure. I meant that to sound more exaggerated than it did. It came across as a little too sincere.
I'm getting flashbacks to breaking up with my ex-boyfriend in high school. Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, you're all I have. Please don't leave me. No, I am fine. I am genuinely also doing fine. Not that anyone's asking, but yeah,
we're asking.
All good over here.
That's good, and we love to have you. More Charles. I personally love when you edit. It's like you're a character. I love when editors are like that, and I feel like it's rare. But I used to watch like YouTube channels back in the day where they'd have like an editor, and it felt like the editor was like there like all the time, and they would like influence their vibe into the video. And I feel like you're really good at that, and I love that you do that. Like watching the GDC coverage that you edited, it just kind of felt like Charles was always around in the footage, which I love.
Also, Janet keeps addressing the editor in all those clips too. It's like editor, if you see this, editor, and someone be like, I think Charles is doing it. And then there's one point where this is just an Easter egg for the extended version. There's one part where guys are all in line to go see something, and then you're like, hi, editor, and then I cut in a clip of myself waving back, but it's not in the edited version. So if you watch the extended one and get like 2/3 of the way through, it'll be in there.
Love that.
But yes, I enjoy doing that.
I love stuff like that. You're great. I'm glad we have you on our team to do stuff like that, because that's like my favorite video style thing. I don't know if you ever watched Game Grumps, but like old school Game Grumps with Barry, it was like Barry was just always there. Like that's what I think about. You give me those vibes. Yes, thank you so much, and we'll be seeing Charles more this week. And thank you, listeners, for watching. We'll see you this time next week. Bye.
Bonus pod.
Thank you, Charles. We should use that as a sound clip at the start. Fantastic. All right, people on Twitch, let's see who's live right now. Maybe Sarah's live doing Fields of... Oh my god, I'm so stupid. I was like, MinMax is live. I'm like, that's me, idiot. Do you ever do stuff like
Can
that?
you raid yourself?
What would happen? Would the internet explode if I did that? I'm so dopey sometimes. All right. Raid channel. We got... Ooh, Ellie Joy Panic. She's streaming. Let's send y'all over there. She's super rad. Thank you for watching, everybody. And Twitch is working, right? Yep, there we go. All right, bye, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Many.